So here we are, talking about the budget 2025 and what it could mean for labor. Now, before anyone gets all fired up, let's be real. Budgets are like weather forecasts. They can be surprisingly accurate or totally off the mark, and a lot depends on how things play out behind the scenes. But still, it's fascinating to think about the possibilities, isn't it? First off, let's unpack the best-case scenario. What would labor probably love to see happen? Well, the dream, of course, would be a budget that actually pushes the economy to grow, while also investing heavily in public services like healthcare, education, and social care. Imagine a government that doubles down on green energy projects, creating tons of new jobs, and at the same time, makes sure that the most vulnerable in society are looked after. And here's the thing, labor policies tend to focus on fairness, right? So, a budget that raises taxes on the richest, closes loopholes, and makes sure big corporations pay their fair share would be a huge win. It would give labor a lot of ammunition. They want to say, look, we're reinvesting in the country, not skinnying down the safety net. Plus, if the government manages to get some form of economic stability, that'd be a huge boost for their narrative, showing they're competent and responsible. Now, within this perfect scenario, there's also the political side. If labor can frame this as a budget that really delivers for working folks, more jobs, better health care, affordable housing, it could boost their popularity. It might even soften opposition, especially if they handle some of the tough economic challenges convincingly. That's the kind of feedback loop they love, right? Seeing their policies resonate and giving them momentum going into the next elections. But I want to switch gears now, because let's be honest, perfect scenarios are nice, but reality is messier. So what's the worst that could happen from a labor perspective? Well, first, the government could pull punches. Like instead of really tackling inequality, they might keep the status quo or worse, reduce public spending and austerity measures creep back in. That'd be a huge hit for labor's core values, and they'd have a tough time defending that. And then there's the worry about taxes. If they push too hard on taxing the rich, they could face pushback from businesses and opposition parties. It might even slow down economic growth if people feel too squeezed. That's a fine line to walk. Tax enough to fund public services, but not so much that it stifles investment. And if they screw that up, they risk protests or even alienating big donors and supporters. One of the biggest what-ifs is how global economic shocks could affect this whole thing. A recession, a crisis in the markets, or worse, inflation spiraling out of control. That could mean less money to spend, more borrowing, and suddenly all the ambitious plans are on hold. It's like trying to build a house during a storm, difficult to keep your footing. Labor could end up with egg on their face if they bet big on growth that just doesn't materialize. Let's not forget political chaos. The opposition will cry foul, accuse labor of reckless spending, or claim they're not serious about fiscal responsibility. And the media can make or break narratives sometimes. If some of labor's promises look unrealistic, or if they stumble on delivering policies, their support could slip just when they need it most. But here's an interesting angle. Sometimes, what's worst for labor isn't necessarily a huge failure, but a stagnation or retreat that feels like betrayal. Their own supporters might feel let down if the budget isn't bold enough. That could cause internal cracks and make the party look indecisive or divided, which is never great in politics. So, what does all this tell us? Well, I think, regardless of the specific outcomes, the coming budget is a test in management, messaging, and yes, political courage. If labor can navigate these choppy waters, invest wisely, and keep their promises, they could set themselves up for a pretty promising future. But if they miss their mark, either by overpromising or underdelivering, the consequences could be severe, not just for them, but for the people who depend on those policies. And honestly, that's what makes politics fascinating, isn't it? The balancing act, trying to do what's right, while managing the realities everyone's got to live with. Sometimes we'll see bold, transformative policies. Other times we get a cautious compromise. Either way, it's gonna be a wild ride, and I suspect we're all gonna be watching closely. So if you ask me, the best thing Labor could do with this budget is aim high, but keep their feet on the ground. Focus on genuine reforms, avoid the gimmicks, and keep the conversation honest about what's possible and what's not. That's how they'll earn trust and maybe, just maybe, move closer to that ideal of a fairer society. And hey, whether you're cheering them on or skeptically watching, I think it's safe to say that whatever happens, it'll shape the next chapter in this political story. And I'll be here, trying to make sense of it all as it unfolds. Thanks for hanging out and having this chat with me. If you want to keep digging into these issues, hit subscribe or drop a comment. Let's keep the conversation going, yeah.